In the golden heat of the African savanna, where acacia shadows flicker like ghosts on the grass and dust hangs in the air like powdered bone, the lion's roar is more than sound. It is declaration. Territory here is more than just land. It is lineage, dominance, and control of the future. And to hold it, lions do not simply fight off intruders, they eliminate rivals, even the ones who never saw it coming. As the sun bleeds downward across the Serengeti horizon, a young leopard slips silently through the underbrush. It moves with the fluid grace of something born to vanish, hugging the edges of sight and sound. It carries a fresh kill in its jaws, a scrub hare still twitching, and glances skyward, aware of vultures. But it should be looking elsewhere. Nearby, a lioness crouches low behind a termite mound, her body pressed flat against the dry earth, every muscle coiled. This isn't a hunt for food. This is purging. The leopard doesn't make it 3 more steps. A rush, a growl, an explosion of fur and claws. The lioness is on it before it can scale the tree. There's a brief flash of gold and blood, then silence. The lioness doesn't eat the carcass. She leaves it. Not out of mercy, but because her job is done. One less predator in her territory. One less mouth to compete with. In this unforgiving kingdom, supremacy isn't just about strength, it's about subtraction. Across Africa's grasslands, lions are widely seen as apex predators. But their dominance is not simply earned through size or brute force. It's enforced through strategy, patrol, and calculated aggression. Lions kill leopards not to feed, but to remove an agile rival that hunts the same prey. Leopards are stealth masters. They do not challenge lions in the open, but they do steal impalas, warthogs, and hares that lion prides rely on, especially during the dry season when food is scarcer than shade. The same logic applies to another frequent target: wild dogs. A pack of African wild dogs can run circles around a lion pride in terms of efficiency. With near-perfect coordination and relentless stamina, these lean, sharp-faced hunters can bring down prey much larger than themselves. A single wild dog kill feeds many, and lions, opportunistic as ever, often bully their way into the spoils. But when they find wild dogs without a full pack, particularly when pups are involved, lions don't hesitate to kill. Cubs are crushed or tossed into the air with a snap of the jaw, while adult dogs are mauled or chased for kilometers. It's not rage, it's regulation. Wild dogs that get too bold, too successful, or too close to pride lands are removed with swift brutality. Even among their own kind, lions are not safe. When new males take over a pride, their first act is rarely celebratory. It's infanticide. The cubs of the previous coalition are killed, sometimes with surgical violence. This resets the reproductive clock of the lionesses, who will enter estrus sooner, allowing the new males to sire their own offspring. It's a cold biological tactic driven by evolutionary urgency. A male lion's reign is short. On average, just 2 to 3 years before younger coalitions or returning rivals force them out. In that window, they must ensure their genes dominate the pride's future. Killing cubs isn't cruel by lion standards, it's insurance. Females are not spared from these violent transitions either. If they resist, if they try to protect the cubs, they are harassed, isolated, sometimes killed. Nature, at this level, is not sentimental. It doesn't reward nurturing instincts if they come at the cost of genetic success. Lion-on-lion violence extends beyond pride politics. Bachelor males, nomads without a pride, sometimes clash in lethal disputes over territory, mating rights, or fresh kills. These fights can leave permanent damage: shattered jaws, torn eyes, shredded tendons. Some never recover. Some starve slowly from the wounds. Others wander too close to hyena clans or riverbanks and are finished off by the next opportunist. Being the apex predator doesn't mean safety. It means everyone's watching you, and your downfall will be swift and public. Even inside a pride, the lines blur. Lionesses cooperate to hunt, raise cubs, and defend their patch of savanna. But when food runs low or injury weakens a member, the social bonds thin. In documented cases, weakened lionesses, especially the old or sick, have been ganged up on and killed, sometimes cannibalized. It's rare, but when survival is on the line, family turns fluid. What was once a hunting sister becomes meat. Why does the lion kill other predators? Because it can, but more importantly, because it must. The savanna is not big enough for peaceful coexistence. Each predator demands resources, water, prey, safety. Lions, with their bulk and muscle, can force out competitors, not by chasing them off, but by ending them permanently. And the ripple effects are real. In regions where lions are absent, leopards and hyenas grow bolder. Wild dogs thrive. Even cheetah populations increase. But where lions rule, their shadow is long and few predators thrive in their presence. Cubs learn this early. A lioness will bring her young near the edges of the pride's territory to sniff out rivals, to observe how the landscape is patrolled. They watch males chase off hyenas, see lionesses lunge at jackals. These are not random bursts of aggression, they are lessons. Lessons that will keep the bloodline alive. In rare moments, when a pride topples another pride, the brutality multiplies. Entire bloodlines can be wiped out in hours. Male coalitions drive off or kill all defenders. New dominance is asserted not with ceremony, but with raw, unavoidable violence. The lion's roar may carry through the plains, but it's the silence that follows a kill that truly speaks of power. Lions are not just hunters, they are regulators, gatekeepers, assassins of balance. In a world where every predator is a player, they are also the referees, and sometimes executioners. Their dominance is not granted by nature, it is taken, maintained, enforced, not just against prey, but against anyone who might rise beside them. And so, as the last rays of sun burn low into the horizon, casting long, rippling shadows over the grass, the pride moves forward again, not hungry, not chasing, just patrolling. Somewhere nearby, a hyena pauses. A leopard hesitates before climbing down from a tree. Even when the lions aren't hunting, they're still hunting. And that is why no predator sleeps soundly where lions walk. In the African lowlands, where the grass ends and the water begins, stillness is not a sign of peace. It is a trap. The river, wide and brown with silt, carries a false sense of calm. Wind stirs only the reeds, and sunlight bounces off the surface like polished bronze. But beneath, cloaked in silence and algae, lies an ancient presence, barely moving, barely breathing, watching. Crocodiles are not opportunistic in the same way lions or hyenas are. They are not scavengers of luck. They are engineers of stillness, architects of ambush. Their bodies are designed for a single moment, the strike. Days may pass with no movement but the flick of an eyelid. But when the waterline breaks, when the bank softens under hoof or claw, everything changes in an instant. On the banks of the Grumeti or the Rufiji River, even apex predators tread carefully. Wild dogs, normally chaotic and fearless in the open plains, hesitate at the edges. They sniff the mud, scan the water, then move as one. But it only takes one misstep, one member trailing behind, one pup distracted. And from the sludge comes a surge, a hissing eruption of power, a flash of armored muscle. Jaws like iron gates slam shut with over 3,000 pounds of pressure. No bark, no struggle, just a tail disappearing into red foam. Crocodiles don't chase, they wait. It is not patience born from laziness, it is strategic lethality. They time their kills to moments of vulnerability. Migration crossings, droughts, mating distractions. When predators, even large ones, lose focus, the river punishes them. In one documented case in the Okavango Delta, a spotted hyena, separated from its clan, was seen stalking a wounded antelope that had collapsed just meters from a slow-moving channel. The hyena, confident and unchallenged, crept in, muzzle twitching, only for the water to explode beneath it. The antelope had never been the real target. It was bait, or perhaps just irrelevant. The hyena's yelp was short-lived, swallowed by the churn. Minutes later, bubbles and silence. Crocodiles feed on a broad spectrum of life: fish, birds, antelope, buffalo, calves. But when a predator enters their world, something changes in the behavior. The strike becomes more violent, the thrash more intense. Crocodiles often perform the death roll, a spinning maneuver used not only to disorient prey but to tear it apart. When applied to rival predators, especially those with claws and teeth, the roll becomes a form of disarmament. Teeth snap, limbs twist, skulls crack. These kills are not clean. They are performances of dominance. Cheetahs, despite their speed and elegance, are vulnerable near water. They are built for short sprints, not aquatic acrobatics. When mothers lead their cubs across shallow streams, they scan for threats from above: lions, leopards, jackals. But few expect danger to erupt from below. There are rare accounts of cheetah cubs vanishing mid-crossing, the only trace a rippling wake and a floating tuft of fur. The mother cannot fight back. She cannot dive. Her body is too light, her claws too short. She can only pace the edge of the water, silent, until the splashing stops. Even lions, the apex terrestrial predator, fall to crocodiles, especially when crossing rivers during seasonal migrations or territorial expansion. Males with heavy manes and heavy steps become easy targets when forced to swim. In Kenya's Tana River, a male lion was witnessed attempting to ford a narrow but deep channel during a dry season territory push. Halfway through, his head jerked backward. A second crocodile lunged from the side. The struggle was violent and the lion fought hard. But water is not his arena. His lungs filled, his limbs slowed. When the current resumed, it carried his body downstream, limp and broken. Crocodiles rarely eat the entire kill at once. They stash large prey under submerged roots or logs, wedging it between branches in underwater larders. Days later, bloated and soft, the carcass is revisited, often shared by multiple crocodiles in a grotesque but cooperative feast. In these cases, the predator's identity is still visible. The spotted fur of a cheetah, the unmistakable paws of a jackal, half dissolved, half devoured. The behavior is not random. Crocodiles are intelligent in their own right. Studies show they coordinate ambushes and may even use tools, placing sticks on their snouts to lure birds. When it comes to other predators, especially those who scavenge near their waters, crocodiles learn quickly. A hyena that drinks from the same spot each dawn, a jackal pair that nests nearby, a lioness teaching her cubs to fish at dusk. These patterns become data. Data becomes advantage. Advantage becomes ambush. In some ecosystems, crocodiles sit atop a parallel hierarchy, not kings of the savannah, but emperors of the waterline. They do not patrol. They do not roar. They do not chase. But they hold a monopoly over fear at the water's edge. Every predator, from eagle to lion, modifies its behavior near rivers. They walk slower. They keep distance. They raise their heads more often because they know the rules change here. This dynamic tension shapes entire food webs. Predators that rely on rivers for water or prey must adapt or risk vanishing. Some wild dog packs avoid known crocodile zones entirely, circling dozens of kilometers to safer watering holes. Hyenas have been observed using elevated rocks or fallen trees to drink, or sending subordinates first. Even elephants, whose size renders them nearly immune to crocodile attack, lift their trunks high and stomp the banks before stepping in, a warning and a check. Apex predators may rule the land, but crocodiles rule the boundary. And that boundary where land surrenders to liquid is where power is most fragile, where a hunter can become hunted not through weakness, but through a momentary miscalculation. The wrong step, the wrong time, the illusion that apex status extends across every terrain. But the crocodile doesn't care for titles. It doesn't recognize kings or rivals. It recognizes movement, shadow, softness in the mud. And when those cues align, when the pattern matches memory, it doesn't hesitate. It doesn't roar. It bites. And in that instant, the river reminds all who approach. Beneath this calm lies something older, colder, and far more ruthless than anything that walks on four legs. Far below the glittering surface of the open ocean, where sunlight filters down in rippling blue shafts and the water begins to press with weight and silence, a different law governs survival. One colder, simpler, and older than anything found on land. Here there are no borders, no prides, no calls for backup. There is only hunger. And in these waters, even the hunters are hunted. Sharks are often imagined as apex predators, sleek, solitary, perfect machines of predation. And they are. But they are also something more brutal, something less mythic and more animal. Opportunists. Among them, no species is safe, no individual exempt. Sharks eat sharks, not out of malice, not in vengeance, but as part of the ocean's logic. If it swims smaller, slower, weaker, or simply unfortunate enough to bleed, it may be bitten. If it resists, it may be eaten. Cannibalism in these waters isn't a breakdown of the system, it is the system. The tiger shark, broad-headed and thick-bodied, is among the most notorious practitioners. It roams tropical and subtropical seas with a lumbering confidence, inspecting anything from sea turtles to trash to other sharks. A juvenile blacktip reef shark that drifts too far from its school or too close to the seafloor becomes easy prey. Tiger sharks approach with slow, deliberate motions, conserving energy until the moment is right. Then comes the sudden lunge, the whip of the tail, and a crunch that silences everything. There is no ceremony. The body is swallowed in chunks. The fins last, sometimes torn off mid-bite and left to spiral to the sand. But the cannibalism of sharks begins even before birth. Inside the wombs of certain shark species, particularly sand tiger sharks, the embryos hatch internally and begin devouring each other while still inside their mother. Only the strongest survives. It is not a metaphor. It is documented biological behavior. This intrauterine cannibalism ensures that the shark born is not only alive, it is lethal before it ever touched the sea. Teeth form in the darkness of the womb. Combat begins before the first breath of seawater. As sharks mature, this violence turns outward. Reef ecosystems, once seen as havens for smaller shark species like whitetips or nurses, often hide more gruesome stories. When food runs scarce, these mid-level predators begin hunting their own. Reports of reef sharks missing entire tail sections or bearing massive bite scars on their flanks tell silent tales of failed ambushes by their own kind. These wounds rarely heal cleanly. Infection, loss of mobility, or stress can weaken the shark, making it a second-time target for another passing hunter. Great whites, though often painted as lone kings of the deep, are just as susceptible to this primal logic. In areas with high shark density, especially near seal rookeries or migration paths, white sharks have been recorded attacking others of their species. Sometimes it begins as competition, a dominance display over a carcass or a miscalculated charge, but often it ends in blood. In False Bay, South Africa, a large male was filmed biting down on the gill plate of a slightly smaller shark, puncturing its vital systems and rendering it motionless in seconds. No part of the kill was wasted. The predator became the meal. This behavior is not random violence. It has pattern, strategy, and ecological implications. Cannibalistic sharks regulate population density, thinning out the sick, the injured, the genetically inferior. By removing weaker members of the population, these predators indirectly strengthen their species. Evolution here has no patience, only performance. Even among cooperative species, such as the hammerhead sharks that school by the dozens off the coasts of the Galapagos or Cocos Island, there exists a subtle tension. These schools are not social gatherings. They are congregations driven by currents, temperature, and food. And within them, hierarchies form. The largest females dominate central positions in the group, safer from external threats and better fed. Juveniles hover on the fringes. Occasionally, when food is limited or waters are crowded, one shark turns on another and the ocean blooms red. The open ocean, the pelagic zone, offers even fewer boundaries. Here, mako sharks, among the fastest fish in the sea, hunt anything they can catch. This includes other pelagic sharks, such as blue sharks, which often travel in loose, nomadic aggregations. Makos dart in from below or behind, biting off chunks before the victim even realizes it's being stalked. Death is not always immediate. Sometimes the hunted shark escapes, drifting injured through miles of emptiness, bleeding into the abyss. Even the carcasses of sharks serve as signals. In places like Guadalupe Island, where great whites gather for the seasonal arrival of elephant seals, researchers have discovered the floating remains of partially eaten sharks, often with the liver removed. The liver, rich in oils and nutrients, is a delicacy in shark terms. Some species have evolved the precision to extract it with a single bite. The most notable of these, killer whales. But among sharks, tiger sharks also show an uncanny ability to target the liver of their kin. Whether learned or instinctual, this behavior reflects a growing awareness and a chilling intelligence in the hunt. Cannibalism also escalates in areas of human disturbance. In fisheries where bycatch or baited lines attract large numbers of sharks into close quarters, aggression spikes. Injured or stressed sharks become easy targets, and cannibalism increases. What begins as scavenging often escalates into feeding frenzies. Here, the predator's blood becomes just as appetizing as that of the prey. In this maelstrom, hierarchy vanishes. Size, not species, determines survival. Unlike land predators, sharks cannot rely on cries, growls, or vocal intimidation. Their language is physical: postures, angles, feints. A downward tilt of the pectoral fins signals aggression. A side-to-side motion may be a bluff or a warning before attack. In the absence of clear communication, misunderstandings end in wounds. In wounds, others smell opportunity. It's not that sharks are malicious, it's that the ocean they evolved in allows no room for mercy. There is no pack loyalty, no maternal bond past the womb. Once born, a shark is alone, and every shape in the water is both competitor and potential meal. This solitary nature drives the constant tension among shark species, even those that share the same reef, trench, or drop-off. In a place where blood drifts like a signal flare through the currents and sound travels faster than on land, there are no second chances. Cannibalism is not an aberration of shark behavior. It is its most honest expression, a reflection of the environment that shaped them, vast, silent, indifferent. And in this deep, endless cathedral of salt, where no throne lasts and no predator is truly safe, the shark that swims behind you is not always your rival. Sometimes it is your kin, and sometimes that doesn't matter. Above the humid, tangled canopy of equatorial forests, where sunlight flickers in green and gold through a ceiling of leaves, the world shifts. On the ground, predators stalk with paws and fangs. In the branches, claws and shrieks define the rhythm. But in the sky, where the air thins and wind currents ripple through feathered wings, power descends from silence. The eagles that rule these vertical kingdoms are not just birdwatcher curiosities or symbols of nobility. They are apex hunters in their own right. And in their world, monkeys are not untouchable. They are prey. In Central and East Africa, the crowned eagle is a master of this domain. Not massive by eagle standards, just under 4 kilograms, but built like a missile with talons forged for crushing bone. Its wings are short and broad, optimized not for soaring but for weaving between tree trunks at terrifying speed. Its legs are thick and muscled, ending in claws that exert forces strong enough to pierce through a monkey's skull. When it strikes, it doesn't just kill, it silences the entire forest floor. Monkeys live in constant alert in these regions, not just because of the big cats or the pythons that might slither up the branches, but because they know that at any moment from above the leaves, death may fall. The crowned eagle hunts with the advantage of the third dimension. It sees without being seen, often circling above the canopy in slow, invisible loops, waiting for movement. A juvenile monkey stepping onto a bare limb, a distracted mother grooming its infant, a silverback's attention diverted. Then it drops. The dive is almost vertical. The eagle folds its wings and plummets between branches with terrifying precision, a blur of feathers and momentum. If the prey is small, like a colobus or vervet monkey, the attack ends in a fraction of a second. A thud of impact, a flash of talons. Then the eagle vanishes upward again, carrying the limp body beneath it, wings straining but steady. If the target is larger, a juvenile baboon or a monkey struggling back, the struggle is more visceral. Flashes of movement ripple through the canopy. Panic spreads in waves, and often the eagle rides its catch to the ground, wings extended, using its entire weight to smother the fight before it begins. Harpy eagles of the Amazon push this predatory concept even further. One of the heaviest eagles in the world, the harpy boasts talons longer than a grizzly bear's claws, powerful enough to crush the spine of a howler monkey or sloth with one foot. In the rainforest, they perch patiently near feeding trees, watching with unblinking focus. These birds do not rush. They wait until their target climbs into the open. Then, in absolute silence, they strike. For primates, the fear of raptors is deeply ingrained. Troops of monkeys post sentries, individuals whose only job is to watch the sky. A shadow passing overhead, a shift in the breeze, a sudden silence in the birdsong. These can trigger an alarm call that ripples through the group. Infants are clutched tighter. Branches shake as bodies dive into dense foliage. But the eagle is not deterred. It simply circles again. It can wait all day. Monkeys forget. Eagles don't. In rare documented cases, these raptors even engage in battles with other birds of prey. Crowned eagles have been seen driving off hawk eagles and martial eagles, especially near nesting territories. They don't tolerate competition. The sky is not for sharing. One crowned eagle pair, nesting high in the forests of Tanzania, killed a juvenile African hawk eagle that strayed too close to their fledglings. The dismembered remains were found beneath the tree, not consumed, just removed. Dominance in the air is not only enforced with talons, but with absolute clarity. These eagles will eliminate anything that flies too close, even if it means turning predator against predator. There is a brutal irony in the harpy eagle's preferred prey. Capuchin monkeys and howler monkeys, among the most intelligent non-human primates, exhibit complex social behaviors, communication systems, and even problem-solving abilities. But none of that matters when they are spotted from 100 feet above. Intelligence doesn't protect against gravity. A harpy eagle doesn't hesitate because its target is aware. It merely adjusts the angle of descent. Eagle hunting also shapes the behavior of monkey groups. Species that live in eagle-rich territories tend to travel more cautiously, avoiding exposed branches or high canopy crossings when unnecessary. Some monkeys have adapted their sleeping patterns, resting in dense clusters where foliage reduces the chances of aerial detection. Others rely on vocal warning systems that can identify raptor species by specific pitch, alarm calls that distinguish a crowned eagle from a snake or leopard. This vocal precision has been studied and verified, suggesting that monkeys not only fear raptors, they catalogue them. In some ecosystems, the eagle's success shapes the forest itself. By preying on tree-dwelling herbivores like monkeys and sloths, they indirectly impact the dispersal of seeds and growth of certain canopy plants. Their presence ripples downward, a top-down effect from predator to foliage. Fewer monkeys mean less fruit dispersal. Fewer sloths mean slower consumption of certain leaves. The eagle, though rarely seen, leaves fingerprints across the landscape in blood and absence. Nesting pairs of crowned and harpy eagles often return to the same nest sites for decades, building enormous structures of sticks and leaves high in the forest. These nests become landmarks, above and below. Monkeys learn to avoid them. Birds give them a wide berth. But every few years, when a new clutch is born, the hunt intensifies. Parents need more food. Risk increases. Even experienced monkey troops suffer losses during these periods. The rainforest, for a time, feels thinner, quieter. Despite their prowess, both crowned and harpy eagles face threats from below, not from natural predators, but from human activity. Logging reduces the tall emergent trees they need for nesting. Habitat fragmentation forces them into tighter territories with fewer prey. And in some cases, traditional beliefs or ignorance lead to persecution. Still, in protected pockets of forest, these raptors persist, gliding above the canopy, silent and sharp-eyed, watching for any mistake. And the monkeys, for all their cleverness and agility, know better than to forget. Because while snakes slither and leopards stalk, it is the shape in the sky they fear most, the shadow that doesn't make a sound. In these ancient forests, where branches twist like bones and vines hang like traps, death doesn't always climb. Sometimes it falls. The seafloor, in the dim reaches of shallow reefs and rocky coves, appears still. Sediment settles like dust in slow motion, broken only by the distant pulse of a current or the lazy sweep of a passing fish. Algae sway in a rhythm that's almost hypnotic, concealing the drama that unfolds just inches beneath them.
In this subdued theater of camouflage and shadow, one creature waits without pulse, without bone, without sound, and without fear. The octopus is not armored.
It carries no spines or venomous fangs, no thick hide or bony defenses. What it has instead is an arsenal built around intelligence, flexibility, and an unnerving ability to disappear into its surroundings. Its body can change texture, color, and even apparent mass within seconds. It can slide into cracks barely wider than its eyeball, flatten into the crevice of a coral shelf, or vanish into the mud with a single puff of ink. But when necessary, it can also become a killer, not through speed or force, but through precision. In the waters off the Pacific Northwest, a murky battlefield hosts a predator-prey paradox that seems to rewrite the rules. Here, among the anemones and kelp beds, smaller species of shark, like dogfish and cat sharks, cruise the benthic zone in search of crustaceans or wounded fish. They are lean and quick, their movements smooth, their senses sharp. They do not expect trouble from the reef's quiet corners. But sometimes the ambusher is watching, not from the water column, from the rock itself. Octopuses, particularly the giant Pacific octopus, possess 8 arms lined with hundreds of suckers, each one able to detect texture, taste, and pressure. When they strike, they do so not like a missile, but like a trap closing. A shark that drifts too close may notice only a shift in the silt, then find its gills clogged, its movement restrained, its senses overwhelmed. The octopus wraps around the gill slits and tightens. Breathing becomes impossible. Thrashing only exhausts the victim further. There is no room to maneuver, no way to bite back. And then comes the final move. The beak, a hidden but devastating weapon capable of drilling through shell or cartilage. Inserted near the brainstem, it ends the struggle with surgical efficiency. Such attacks are not frequent, but they are well documented. In aquariums and in the wild, biologists have observed octopuses ambushing and killing sharks many times their size. In a 2009 incident at the Seattle Aquarium, staff began noticing missing dogfish sharks from a mixed exhibit. Eventually, cameras revealed the culprit, a large octopus that had been systematically hunting the sharks during nighttime hours, pulling them into its lair and leaving no trace. The sharks, for all their evolutionary weaponry, were unprepared for this kind of enemy. Unlike most sea creatures, octopuses can manipulate their environment. They use coconut shells for shelter, arrange rocks to block predators, and change posture to mimic more dangerous species. But when they go on the offensive, the approach is almost always the same: close range, surprise, and suffocation. While most animals rely on speed or venom to subdue prey, the octopus relies on immobilization. It's a patient kill, often lasting minutes. But that's part of the strategy. Once the shark is too weak to fight, it simply stops. Octopuses have no skeleton, but their musculature is incredibly dense and precise. Each arm operates semi-independently, and the creature can focus on manipulating different limbs simultaneously, one wrapping around a fin, another controlling the tail, others covering the eyes or sealing the mouth. For the shark, this is disorientation at its most complete. Every movement is countered, every escape blocked, and even its keen electroreception, the ability to sense movement through electrical fields, is confused by the constant overload of contact and struggle. Panic replaces instinct. The predator becomes the victim. What's more remarkable is that this isn't some freak exception to nature's hierarchy. It's a recurring theme in benthic ecosystems, the places where the ocean meets rock, where predators rely less on speed and more on ambush, deception, and control. Octopuses aren't just defending themselves. They're choosing the time and place to go on the offensive. They are not prey reacting to threat. They are hunters managing risk. Scientists studying octopus cognition have long marveled at their problem-solving skills. They recognize individual humans, remember paths through mazes, and use trial and error learning. But in the wild, this intelligence translates into a behavioral arsenal few animals can match. Octopuses don't just observe, they plan. They don't just hide, they time. Every ambush against a shark is a calculated gamble, one that depends on reading movement, selecting the perfect moment, and executing with flawless grip. Still, this is not a battle the octopus always wins. A healthy, alert shark, particularly a larger one, can fight its way free. A single well-placed bite can sever an arm. And in open water, the octopus loses all its advantages. But in the right environment, where crevices, camouflage, and cover tilt the balance, it becomes something else entirely. A silent assassin with the patience of a stone. These encounters reveal an uncomfortable truth about the animal kingdom. Hierarchy is fluid. Apex status depends not just on teeth and size, but on timing, intelligence, and terrain. The shark rules the open blue. The octopus rules the shadows beneath. When the two worlds overlap, instinct alone isn't enough. The one who sees first, who strikes clean, who controls the variables, that one survives. Beneath the ocean's surface, power isn't always loud. Sometimes it glides silently between rocks, watching, adjusting, waiting for the perfect moment. The octopus doesn't chase, it doesn't intimidate, it doesn't warn. It simply wraps, constricts, and finishes, one predator at a time. At first glance, the savanna looks peaceful. Golden grass stretches endlessly across the horizon, punctuated by the occasional umbrella thorn tree and the slow, hypnotic dance of heat shimmer rising off the earth. But in this quiet stillness, everything is contested. Every meal, every meter of land, every breath. And two of the most cunning carnivores on the continent are locked in a battle that never truly ends. One moves like smoke over the plains, fast, coordinated, ruthless in its efficiency. The other arrives like a storm, loud, muscular, brazen in its dominance. This is not a predator versus prey story. This is predator versus predator, wild dog versus hyena. The African wild dog, also known as the painted wolf, is a study in contradictions. Lean, lanky, almost delicate in form, yet among the most efficient killers in the animal kingdom. With oversized ears tuned to the slightest sound and a gait that can cover kilometers without fatigue, they are pack animals in the truest sense. Every member has a role. Every hunt is choreographed like a ballet performed at full sprint. They don't stalk, they run, relentlessly, until the prey drops. Hyenas, by contrast, are built like war machines. Thick-necked, sloped-backed and jawed like industrial tools, they are often misunderstood as scavengers living off the scraps of others. In truth, hyenas hunt more than they scavenge, often coordinating in clans larger than any wild dog pack. They are masters of endurance, dominance and disruption. Where wild dogs operate on precision, hyenas thrive on brute manipulation. Where wild dogs plan, hyenas impose. The battlefield is shared territory. Both species target the same prey, impala, wildebeest calves, warthogs, and both rely on group tactics to succeed. But when these tactics collide, the savanna turns into a war zone. It begins with a sound, the sharp, chirping rally cry of a wild dog pack, or the cackling whoop of a hyena clan closing in. These vocalizations don't just signal movement, they mark intent. A wild dog hunt unfolds quickly. The pack spots a young impala and breaks into a chase. Their strategy is relentless pressure, taking turns at the front, exhausting the prey in waves. Within minutes, the impala stumbles. The pack closes in, bites snapping in blur. The kill is fast and clean. The prey consumed in minutes, bones stripped and organs shared with surgical efficiency. But even as the blood dries, the noise draws attention. From over the ridge comes a chorus of guttural whoops. The hyenas are coming. Hyenas approach with calculated confidence. They outsize wild dogs by a significant margin, and their numbers often tip the scale. Their body language is aggressive. Tails raised, ears flat, jaws wide. A confrontation is not guaranteed, but the threat is real. The wild dogs form a defensive circle around the kill, snarling, feinting, barking in high-pitched bursts. But if the hyenas commit, if they outnumber the defenders, it turns quickly. The dogs scatter. The carcass vanishes beneath a wall of fur and bone-crushing teeth. What took a team effort to earn is lost in seconds. But this isn't a one-sided feud. Wild dogs have adapted. They hunt in tighter intervals, moving quickly after a kill. They cache food, hiding chunks in tall grass or shallow burrows. When numbers allow, they counterattack. Packs of over 20 individuals have been recorded chasing hyenas from their own kills, coordinating flanks, lunges and bites to harass the intruders until they retreat. In these moments, the dogs become aggressors, their speed overwhelming, their unity unsettling. A hyena isolated from its clan faces a dangerous gamble. If it stands its ground, it risks injury. If it runs, it loses standing. The battle is more than physical. It is behavioral chess. Hyenas use psychological warfare, charging boldly, making noise, bluffing confidence. Wild dogs respond with silence, sudden movement, and group cohesion. Even scent plays a role. Both species mark territory aggressively. Clashes often occur along overlapping boundaries, where prey is abundant, but the air carries the stench of both clans. And then there are the true horrors of this rivalry. Hyenas, if they find a wild dog den, will dig through rock and root to reach the pups. They crush skulls, not out of hunger, but to erase future competitors. The damage is devastating, entire litters lost in a night. Wild dogs, in turn, are less aggressive toward hyena young, but will maim or kill separated juveniles during encounters. This is not about balance. It is an arms race in real time. Their war shapes ecosystems. In regions where hyenas dominate, wild dog numbers dwindle. Packs fragment, den sites become mobile, hunts grow riskier. Where wild dogs thrive, hyenas adjust their hunting range, targeting smaller prey, shifting activity to nighttime. The presence of both keeps each from monopolizing the food web, creating a dynamic tension that affects everything from scavenger bird behavior to lion movement patterns. Yet despite their differences, both species share something deeper, the burden of intelligence. Both are among the most cognitively advanced carnivores in Africa. They exhibit social bonding, problem-solving, even mourning behavior. Wild dogs regurgitate food for injured members. Hyenas form long-term alliances that shift with power dynamics, and both have been seen practicing restraint in certain encounters, backing down to avoid unnecessary injury. In their own ways, they are aware that survival isn't just about winning, it's about knowing when not to lose. The savanna, under the golden haze of evening, holds countless stories. A pack of dogs trotting in formation across a dry riverbed. A lone hyena following at a distance waiting. A half-eaten carcass beneath a tree, watched from opposing directions. This isn't just competition for resources. It's a long, grinding rivalry of attrition and adaptation. Every move, every choice is written into the soil. And tomorrow, the battle resumes. A new carcass, a new chase. Another silent standoff at the edge of the clearing. In the endless war between hyenas and wild dogs, there is no permanent victor. Only survivors, only teeth, only turf. The sea glistens under a pale northern sun, a smooth steel-blue expanse interrupted only by the rise and fall of low swells. Beneath this surface, seemingly empty, quiet, moves something engineered not by chance but by centuries of evolutionary refinement. A black dorsal fin slices through the water like a blade, rising nearly 2 meters into the air before vanishing again. The ocean resumes its calm. The predator is already gone, but its presence lingers, felt rather than seen, like a shadow on the edge of memory. This is the realm of the killer whale, the orca, a creature not simply at the top of the food chain, but one that has built its own ladder to get there. Killer whales are apex predators in the purest sense, not because they are the largest or the most aggressive, but because they have outthought, outlearned and outhunted every rival they've ever encountered. In polar oceans, temperate bays, coral reefs, and even deep offshore trenches, they have adapted to local ecosystems with precision unmatched by any other marine carnivore. They do not specialize, they dominate. Whether it's hunting herring in Norway, sea lions off Patagonia, or great white sharks in South Africa, orcas rewrite the rules wherever they swim. A pod of orcas is more than a group, it's a machine. Each member plays a role. Coordination is silent but flawless. In New Zealand, orcas will herd stingrays into shallow lagoons, isolating them from escape routes, then flip them belly up to paralyze them. A tactic perfected through repetition and passed down across generations. In Argentina, they launch themselves onto the beach to seize sea lion pups in brief but surgically timed strikes, then ride the retreating wave back into the surf, jaws full, knowing exactly how far they can risk their mass without stranding. But perhaps their most astonishing and most chilling behavior occurs when they confront fellow predators. In the waters off South Africa, the ocean's hierarchy was recently redefined. Great white sharks, long considered the region's apex marine predators, began disappearing from key habitats. Carcasses were found floating, untouched except for one missing organ, the liver. Clean incisions, no scavenging. The culprit? A small group of orcas that had developed a surgical strike method. They approached the sharks from below, inverted them into tonic immobility, a paralysis response, and extracted the liver with near-perfect precision. The rest of the shark was left to sink. It wasn't just hunting, it was dissection. A shark's liver can account for over 20% of its body mass and is rich in energy-dense squalene, making it a high-value prize. But the real story wasn't nutritional. It was strategic. In the wake of these kills, shark populations fled the area entirely. Orcas hadn't just taken a meal. They had cleared a competitive species from the map. That's the killer whale's real power, not just to kill, but to dictate who gets to survive in a given space. Seals abandon haul-out points when orcas arrive. Dolphins alter migration routes. Even other whales, giants by comparison, tread carefully. Orcas have been recorded separating grey whale calves from their mothers, exhausting them over hours, then feeding collectively. Despite the mother's size, strength and desperation, the coordination of the pod overwhelms her. The calf dies slowly, surrounded by killers who know exactly when and where to strike. Unlike most predators, orcas are not limited by a single hunting method. Their toolset is fluid, cultural, and learned. Some pods specialize in fish, others in seals, others in sharks or even large baleen whales. Their communication is complex. Clicks, whistles, pulsed calls, each pod developing its own dialect, a sort of family language that binds generations. Young orcas observe and practice. They learn by imitation, by failure, and by guidance. The knowledge passed on is not instinct, it is tradition. They also possess the largest brains of any dolphin species, and among the largest relative to body size in the animal kingdom. Their capacity for spatial awareness, memory, and problem-solving rivals that of great apes. Researchers have recorded orcas adapting tactics mid-hunt, modifying previous strategies to accommodate changes in prey behavior or ocean conditions. In one study, A pod altered its usual salmon hunting approach after a change in tide patterns, within hours. No other predator in the ocean matches that level of tactical plasticity. Even defense against the orca is nearly futile. Prey species rely on avoidance, not confrontation. Seals will haul out on icebergs or land. Dolphins flee in tight-knit groups, using speed and unpredictable turns. But against a determined pod, these are temporary measures. Orcas can break through ice, chase for hours, even take turns tiring a victim. Their stamina is as legendary as their strength. In areas where they are not apex predators merely by size, such as near sperm whale populations, orcas work collectively to exploit weaknesses. Young or weak sperm whales are isolated from the pod. While adult whales form defensive circles, calves that stray even slightly can be seized and drowned. The outcome isn't always successful, but the message is clear. No marine creature is entirely safe. Despite their power, killer whales rarely kill for sport. Their attacks are calculated, deliberate, and often efficient. But in some regions, researchers have recorded what can only be described as recreational behavior. Orcas have been seen tossing seals into the air repeatedly before making a kill. Whether as a form of practice, play, or social bonding remains debated. But whatever the motive, the outcome for the victim is the same. Their only true threats are indirect: pollution, declining fish stocks, and human-made noise disrupting their echolocation. But within their own world, no animal rivals their reach. They exist in every ocean, from the freezing currents of Antarctica to the coral-rich tropics of Indonesia. Every pod a variation on the same theme: control through intelligence, mastery through memory. As the sea returns to stillness and the dorsal fin slips beneath the waves once more, the hierarchy remains unshaken. There are predators, and then there are orcas. Not because they dominate with brute strength, but because they have learned how to beat everything the ocean throws at them, including other killers. The apex predator of apex predators, not just surviving the ocean but owning it. In the chaos of the coral reef, a kaleidoscope of darting fish, branching staghorns, pulsing anemones, and flashing scales, danger is usually a moving shadow, fast and clear. Predators chase prey, eyes track movement, the rules of pursuit are visible. But hidden beneath the spectacle, in holes too dark for light and crevices too narrow for escape, lives a predator that doesn't chase at all. It waits, and when it moves, it does so with such speed and violence that the victim barely understands it's being hunted. In the reef's underworld, the moray eel is judge, jury, and executioner. The moray eel, at rest, is nearly invisible. Its long, muscular body, coated in mottled greens, browns, or yellows, folds into rockwork like a ribbon. Its head protrudes just enough for vision, nostrils flaring slightly in the current, jaws rhythmically gaping open and closed, in what looks like a threat display, but is simply how it breathes. This mechanical motion creates a strange illusion, a face that seems locked in perpetual menace. The teeth are needle-sharp, angled inward, and behind them waits something even more unsettling. A second set of jaws, the pharyngeal pair, which shoot forward to drag prey deeper into the throat. Among all predators of the reef, only moray eels come equipped with a real-life monster movie adaptation. Despite their serpentine shape, morays are not snakes. They are fish, albeit heavily modified ones, and their world is defined by narrow tunnels, ledges, and shaded ambush zones. They rarely venture into the open unless in search of new shelter or when driven by hunger. Instead, they turn the reef itself into a trap, using the terrain as a weapon. While sharks rely on speed and groupers on brute force, the moray eel needs only patience, a tight corner, and proximity. For many reef predators, these hiding places are simply background. Lionfish cruise above them, oblivious to what lurks beneath. Juvenile sharks, like blacktips or reef whalers, investigate the cracks for prey, unaware they may have wandered too far. Groupers chase smaller fish into holes, sometimes so eagerly that they wedge themselves into the coral, heads buried, tails flicking. And in those moments, the ambush turns inside out. A flash of movement from the darkness, a spray of sand. The predator becomes the prey. Morays can strike in milliseconds. With poor eyesight but exceptional olfactory senses, they often detect movement before the victim sees them. Once within range, the attack is instantaneous. A lunge, a clamp of jaws, and the terrifying projection of the pharyngeal jaws, yanking the prey backward. There is no struggle in open water, no chase, only crushing pressure in a space too small to swim, too tight to fight back. Even well-armed hunters fall victim. Lionfish, with their venomous spines and intimidating posture, are typically left alone by most reef predators. But morays have no fear of them. Some species, particularly the snowflake and gymnothorax eels, have been observed biting down through the spines and digesting the lionfish regardless, spine, toxin, and all. The eel's thick mucus-covered skin appears to help resist some toxins, and its gut handles what would cripple another predator. Groupers, heavy-set and powerful, present a more direct challenge, but their aggressive foraging often leads them into the eel's arena. A grouper chasing a wrasse into a crevice may find itself attacked from the side, neck or gills slashed, before it even locates the original prey. In some reefs, groupers have adapted by forming short-term alliances with morays, hunting cooperatively. But these partnerships are precarious. If one gets too close to the eel's hiding place, or if prey becomes scarce, the alliance quickly dissolves into aggression. The eel does not discriminate. Even sharks have been documented in unexpected battles with morays. Juvenile white-tipped reef sharks, nosing through coral for octopus or small fish, are not invincible. Videos have shown them recoiling in panic after a sudden strike, bleeding from wounds to the face or eye. In some cases, the eel refuses to release, clamping on until the shark's movements slow, then dragging it deeper into the reef's guts. Size matters, but inside a narrow cave, agility and leverage often count for more than length and teeth. What makes the moray eel such a singular threat is not just its capacity for violence, but its total control of space. In the three-dimensional puzzle of coral outcrops, sponges and rubble, the eel creates a domain with no lines of sight and no room for error. It learns its terrain intimately, often returning to the same burrow for months, even years. The narrow entrances become extensions of its body. Prey don't just walk into its territory, they enter its mouth. To survive here, other predators evolve behavioral caution. Some reef fish travel in groups, minimizing the odds of individual capture. Others use mobbing behavior, like triggerfish bombarding an eel's burrow with fin flares and tail slaps to drive it into retreat. Even octopuses, themselves master ambushers, use jets of ink or broken shells to flush eels from hiding. The reef becomes a game of reaction and counter-reaction. One ambush spawns another. One predator's den is another's grave. Yet for all its cunning, the moray eel is not immortal. It is occasionally caught out in the open, by humans, large sharks, or even octopuses. But in the reef's dense core, its authority remains largely unchallenged. Few creatures dare to go where it goes. Fewer still come back. In this compressed, fractal world of light and shadow, the moray eel turns the architecture of the reef into a weapon more effective than claws or speed. It doesn't need to chase, it doesn't need to warn, and it never needs a second chance. In the reef, death doesn't roar or circle, it waits, quietly, with jaws open in the dark. Beneath the rocks, under the bark, inside the cracks of forgotten places, there exists a hidden war that plays out not in sweeping chases or roaring ambushes, but in shadows. Invertebrates, ancient and efficient, form the foundation of nearly every food web. But their world is far from orderly. It's ruthless, personal, and often cannibalistic. Among these miniature killers, survival is measured in inches, and dominance is claimed not through size or speed, but by venom, timing, and raw nerve. In a damp corner of a forest floor, barely noticed by anything larger than a toad, a tarantula moves slowly across leaf litter. Its legs glide over moss, barely disturbing the ground. Every hair on its body is tuned to vibration. The footsteps of beetles, the wing beats of passing flies, the subtle scuttle of something else approaching. What it doesn't know is that it's being tracked. Not by a bird or a snake or any vertebrate at all, but by another invertebrate predator, a giant centipede. Long, armored, and impossibly fast in close quarters, it hugs the underside of a fallen log, coiling closer with each measured pause. When they meet, it isn't graceful. The tarantula lunges first, fangs snapping down, but the centipede coils and counters. Its venom claws, modified legs near the head, stab forward like curved daggers, injecting paralyzing venom into the spider's abdomen. The fight lasts less than 10 seconds. The tarantula twitches, falls still. The centipede begins feeding, head first, folding its body around its prize like a living rope. There is no victory cry, just digestion in the dark. These duels are far from rare. Invertebrates are among the most aggressive and cannibalistic predators in the animal kingdom. In the absence of warm-blooded metabolism, their strategies are colder, more patient, and often more brutal. Giant water bugs, flattened aquatic assassins with piercing mouthparts, not only eat small frogs and fish, but turn on one another when food is scarce. Cannibalism is baked into their behavior. Even in reproductive rituals, one misstep can mean becoming the next meal. In fact, many female water bugs will eat smaller males before, during, or after mating if the opportunity arises. Life is short. Protein is protein. In the deserts, where heat saps energy and prey is rare, scorpions patrol the sands at night like miniature tanks. With ultraviolet fluorescent exoskeletons and pincers that can crush crickets like paper, they are formidable hunters. But when two rival males encounter one another, often over territory or mates, they don't posture for long. A warning claw wave, a twitch of the stinger, and the duel begins. They wrestle with surprising speed, trying to flip and sting the other in the belly, the soft undercarriage where exoskeleton gives way to vulnerability. The loser may stagger away wounded or not at all. In some cases, the victor consumes the defeated, dragging it to shelter to feed in silence. These lethal contests aren't limited to land. On coral reefs, mantis shrimp, some no bigger than a human finger, launch strikes with such force that the water around their punch momentarily boils from cavitation. Their forelimbs move faster than a bullet, smashing crab shells, fish skulls, and even the aquarium glass that contains them. But these same weapons are often turned on each other. Males in confined spaces will batter one another until one is blinded or killed. A species known for calculated strikes and advanced color vision turns primal when territory is tight. The line between predator and prey among invertebrates is constantly shifting. In the dense canopies of Southeast Asia, orb-weaving spiders occasionally fall prey to assassin bugs, gangly-limbed ambush predators that stalk webs with quiet footsteps. Using deception, they pluck at the silk like struggling insects, mimicking the vibrations of trapped prey. The spider, expecting an easy meal, rushes in, but the bug strikes first, plunging its rostrum into the spider's cephalothorax, pumping enzymes that liquefy tissue. The assassin bug then feeds on its fellow predator from within, a siphoning horror that plays out above the forest floor, witnessed by no one. Even parental care is not a shield. Among some spider species, spiderlings hatch hungry and disorganized. Without sufficient spacing or food, they turn on their own. Siblings devour siblings. In controlled experiments and field observations, up to half of a spider clutch may vanish to cannibalism in the first 24 hours. It's not just competition, it's immediate natural selection. Only the fastest, hungriest, and most cautious survive to leave the nest. There are, of course, more calculated betrayals. The female redback spider, a relative of the black widow, famously eats her mate during copulation. The male, oddly enough, assists in the process, somersaulting his abdomen into her fangs. Why? Theories suggest that his death prolongs mating time, increasing the chances of fertilization. He dies, but his genes persist. Nature in this case rewards sacrifice with a reproductive payoff. What's fascinating is that many of these creatures display clear tactical awareness. Jumping spiders can learn. They test pathways to prey, retreat if a route seems risky, and observe prey before attacking. Some species can recognize themselves in mirrors, a behavior rarely seen even in vertebrates. Others, like trapdoor spiders, modify their burrows with false trails, confusing other predators or rivals. There's a level of cunning here that defies expectations, tucked inside creatures often dismissed as instinct-driven automatons. Despite their size, these invertebrate killers maintain a power rarely attributed to animals without backbones. Their world is not just scaled down, it's more intimate, more brutal, and more reliant on reflex over force. The margins for error are razor thin. Every movement is measured. Every vibration could mean opportunity or death. And so, under logs, beneath bark, inside the cracks between reef stones, a war unfolds continuously, one of pincers and poison, patience and betrayal. The victors do not celebrate. They consume, they vanish, they wait for the next mistake. In the underworld of invertebrates, size offers no guarantees. Survival belongs to the boldest, and the smallest teeth often bite the hardest. Beneath the hierarchy of predator and prey, beneath the stalking, chasing, and feeding that defines so much of the natural world, lies a quieter, more uncomfortable truth, one that unravels the comforting simplicity of the food chain. Not all blood spilled in the wild flows from stranger to stranger. Sometimes it comes from within. The most brutal conflict isn't between species, but between siblings, between parents and offspring, between allies who share the same hunt, the same shelter, and often the same DNA. In the golden heat of the savannah, a lioness grooms her cubs beneath the shade of a thorn tree. They mewl and tumble in the dust, small bodies flashing spots that will soon fade into adult gold. But not all of them are hers. The lioness adopted a third cub, born just days apart from her own, but belonging to her sister, a lioness who died during a buffalo hunt 2 nights before. At first, she nursed all 3 without hesitation, but now food is scarce, and instincts, sharpened by hunger, begin to distort the illusion of family. One cub is weaker, smaller, slower to reach the teat. Over the next 2 days, the adopted cub fails to feed. The others grow, play, climb. He shrinks, then disappears. Lion infanticide is not rare. When new males take over a pride, they will almost always kill cubs that aren't theirs. A calculated act to reset the breeding cycle. But infanticide isn't exclusive to males. Lionesses, too, will turn against young that do not promise survival. In dry seasons, when hunting fails and every ounce of strength is accounted for, maternal instincts collapse under evolutionary mathematics. A weaker cub drains resources, a foreign cub steals milk, and the law of the savannah does not reward mercy. These patterns are echoed far from the plains. In the open ocean, great white shark embryos hatch inside their mother's womb, not into a warm sack of safety, but into a battleground. The strongest immediately begin to consume their siblings, shredding them with serrated teeth while still in utero. It's a grim rite of passage called intrauterine cannibalism. By the time the mother gives birth, only 1 or 2 pups remain. They emerge not as helpless neonates, but as sharpened killers, already the size of an adult human's leg, and already armed with the muscle and instinct to hunt. Here, birth is not the beginning. It's the finish line of a prenatal war. On land, a similar story plays out in the shadowy dens of hyenas. Despite their reputation as fierce competitors, hyenas are deeply social animals. Their clans are complex, matriarchal, and fiercely loyal. But inside the birth den, that unity vanishes. Hyena mothers often give birth to twins, but among the spotted hyenas, it's common for one cub to kill the other within days. The fight is fast and primal. Jaws clamp down on the skull, blood mixes with milk, and the stronger cub inherits the future. The mother rarely intervenes. Sometimes she watches, sometimes she leaves. The winner earns access to her full attention, her milk, her protection. The loser becomes a forgotten statistic. This behavior isn't a fluke of bad luck, it's strategy. In high-stakes ecosystems where dominance determines not just feeding order but future breeding rights, early aggression becomes currency. Those who kill siblings often grow up to lead. Those who hesitate do not. Among birds of prey, the theme repeats. In the nests of harpy eagles and crowned eagles, chicks hatch days apart. The older chick, more developed and demanding, monopolizes food. If the younger cries too loudly, it may receive a warning peck. Over time, that peck becomes a beating, then a death sentence. This phenomenon, known as siblicide, is so common in raptor species that biologists often factor it into population modeling. The parents allow it, not because they lack affection, but because their own survival and reproductive success depends on raising only what the environment can support. In the Amazon basin, jaguar cubs grow in dens tucked into root tangles and hollow logs. While infanticide is rare here, it does occur, usually at the hands of a rival male. But in extreme drought or injury, a mother may kill and consume one of her own cubs to survive. It's not rage, it's not grief, it's calculation. A living cub cannot save her, a dead one might. Insects take this logic to extremes. In the colonies of assassin bugs and some wasp species, female cannibalism of mates is just the beginning. Larvae may consume weaker siblings. Ants and termites may execute sick or damaged members with ruthless precision. If an individual no longer serves the hive's efficiency, it is neutralized. Evolution does not favor the kind or the fair, it favors the effective. Even in species with advanced cooperation, betrayal surfaces. Wolves, known for loyalty and pack cohesion, occasionally drive out or kill members that defy the alpha's authority. Subtle challenges during feeding or breeding season can spark fights that end in blood. Among African wild dogs, a subordinate female that breeds without permission from the alpha may see her pups torn apart by other females. These social structures are not fixed hierarchies of love. They are power dynamics, enforced through violence when necessary. There is a pattern across species, where survival hinges on limited resources, food, shelter, parental care. Competition escalates within the most intimate boundaries. And in those boundaries, the enemy is not a leopard waiting in the dark or a crocodile at the riverbank. It's the sibling at your side, the cub in your nest, the packmate sleeping next to you. Science explains this as a logical response to ecological pressure, reducing brood size to match food availability, removing the weakest links, ensuring the fittest genes are passed on. But for the observer, it challenges a deeper assumption, that nature rewards unity and nurtures family bonds. In truth, those bonds exist only when the environment allows. Remove abundance, add desperation, and even the closest ties unravel. The wild is not heartless, it's indifferent. And in that indifference, predators learn the hardest lesson of all. The greatest threat isn't always what stalks from the shadows. Sometimes it's the thing that shares your blood, the thing that was supposed to grow with you, the one that sleeps, feeds, and breathes beside you until it doesn't. In the end, predators don't just battle the world around them, they battle the world within their own ranks. Survival isn't just about defeating outsiders, it's about making sure there's nothing left inside to challenge your claim. No rivals, no mistakes, no family that grows too strong. In the harshest corners of the natural world, trust is temporary, brotherhood is fragile, and sometimes the deadliest kill isn't made in pursuit. It's made in silence, behind the veil of kinship when no one's watching.